Well, greetings and thanks for joining us today for our 8th episode of Lightbulb Moments. Remember, money isn't the most important thing in life, but it is reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale. So I'm Tom Kuhn from Qnity. I'm your host and curator, whether you're with us live today or whether you're watching us on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. We're here to take what is overwhelming, confusing, and complicated and turn it into a simpler path towards financial success and wellness, following an approach that's simple, visual, and actionable. Last week, we had Lisa Starr, and she is principal of Win Consulting. She's also a certified mind-body consultant. We had a great discussion about trends, a little bit about the spa industry, and some of her insights. So you're welcome to listen to that on YouTube. 2 to 10 is on, and this weekend is when 2 to 10 starts. 2 to 10 is multi-location between 2 to 10 locations. You have to be eligible, invited, etc. And this will be our 11th year. So we are going to spotlight our keynote, who was gracious enough to join us this morning. We'll bring Art on in a little bit. And he's going to give us a preview of what he's talking about. And for those of you who aren't going to be at 2 to 10, we're going to make this relevant for all of you, regardless of what he'll speak about at 2 to 10. We also have Will Simpson of Green Circle. Will is a great guy. We've known Will for a very long time. I think this might be his third $1 million light bulb that he'll earn. He's been a repeat guest. We'll talk to him a little bit about sustainability. 2 to 10 again is on this week in St. Pete. It's certainly going to be a great gathering. I know that Heath Smith and Michelle Schuster and many other members of the team have worked very hard to make sure this is a great experience, and very much looking forward to it. We are on the very final stretch of the Pro Beauty Compensation Study. If there is 1 or 2 pieces to the study that you haven't completed, whether it's the survey or the data submission, please wrap it up. We are at the final deadline for this. So please, we've literally and figuratively turned the deadline upside down just to make it approachable and to allow people to have enough time to do this. It's a big ask to submit your data. It takes a little bit of time. But I will tell you that the findings are fascinating, and even more fascinating than phase 1 of the study. So anyway, if you are, this is a little gentle nudge, if you still need to complete it, please try to do it in the next 24 to 36 hours. We'd appreciate it. We're here really to look at what a career in the professional beauty industry looks like. There's a couple presentations coming up. One will be in the school industry at the ACTS conference. Aaron will be doing a presentation on Saturday on some of the preliminary findings, and I will be presenting on Monday at 2 to 10 some of the findings, and the final report will come out in subsequent weeks, but we'll get a glimpse of the data. I do want to give a shout out to Lightheart Sanders, who has done just an amazing job of being the independent CPA firm to gather the data submission, and they're a delight to work with. They've done a great job, and Kay and Candy and Jared and Kevin and their team has really stepped up to provide the kind of analysis that were needed. So special shout out to those guys. Financial wellness in the professional beauty industry really is our mission and what makes us tick, whether it's our Money Pro financial wellness program that really is helpful not just to the employees as they're able to move some of their personal money metrics, but it's also a benefit to the employers who are trying to improve recruitment, retention, offer a benefit employees will love, and be an employer of choice. We do go through some common issues, for example, how to understand your paycheck. There is a tendency for professionals in and outside the beauty industry to grossly underestimate earnings, and this course helps teach that. This is something that was just posted. We're all the way up in Alaska now on this Money Pro course. This is Tina from Elements up in Fairbanks, Alaska, with her team going through their 9-grid. Perhaps it's on their money why. I'm not sure what they're doing at that moment, but it's great to get up to the great state of Alaska. My sister lives up there, by the way. Anyway, to prosper, manage your ATM, your attention, time, and money. It's not lost on us that this is your precious attention and time. And we certainly hope that you'll get a return on your money, perhaps by one actionable insight that you might have today. Past recordings are posted in the Plan for Profits portal. For those of you that are in our Money SBO program, it's also on YouTube. We welcome the school community always, and very much are pleased that the school community, as well as the salon and spa community, come together to spend some time in community on these weekly sessions. Light bulb moments. So I've got a couple of them, you know, as we've really looked at some. Well, here's the first one. Okay. So my wife had full knee replacement, so she is recovering and she's doing quite well. Thank you very much. But it has made me a major nurse, and it's also made me realize this underground support system that Mary's been participating for years, when she's been delivering meals to everybody that had their own, you know, health issue, is starting to come back. But this one's epic. These are people who moved across the street from us. We barely know them, and she brings over a care package. I mean, you would not believe what's in there, as well as a pillow. And I got to tell you, it's just amazing how people step up and help each other. And I have to tell you, I'm a little concerned about this because Mary's a very healthy cook. And but a lot of times the food we get isn't necessarily, it's a little more rich, let's put it that way. And so anyway, I'm a little concerned about eating habits these days and weight management with all this food coming in. Oh my gosh, I know this is a random light bulb moment, but bear with me. Let's get to a financial related light bulb moment, okay? And you know, we've scrubbed some data here, and I think this really kind of speaks to some of the issues that we're dealing with in the professional beauty industry as it relates to financial literacy and education. Students are going into cosmetology school, ranking themselves 5 out of 10 in financial literacy, and 76% have had no financial education. And it's really cool to start seeing some of these metrics come in from students and how they rate themselves before and after. So financial literacy does help. Financial confidence is an indicator in terms of financial behavior and financial success. So it's awesome to see this kind of increase. So anyway, please support efforts for greater financial wellness in the professional beauty industry, whether that's in our work together or some other mechanism. We certainly want to champion that with you together. All right, so we are going to welcome again to the Brain Trust, starting with Mr. Will Smith. And Will, let's see you. There you are. How are you?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me. I'm great.
Well, you've been a guest on here. I think it's the 3rd time or something like that. So you're going to get. We'll go right to the punchline. You'll get your 2nd or 3rd $1 million light bulb. You're down in Florida, though.
I am. I'm in Florida. I've been here since Sunday morning for some other related events, and it's been really eye-opening spending some time here in the wake of the storm.
And now you normally live in Vancouver, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. And so tell us what it's like. I mean, when I was on with you at a prep call, it's like, so what's it down like? I mean, I've got this imagery. So what's it like down in that area in terms of, you know, what we might expect when we get down to Florida, where we're going to be at St. Pete?
Great question, Tom. And certainly, I'm sure many of us have had friends and family reaching out and saying, "You're going where for a conference?" And especially up in Canada, it was like, you know, everybody just assumed that all of Florida was devastated. In reality, the Tampa Bay area is doing quite well. And so, you know, I got here and I've seen some remnants of the storm, very, very little. I was told by one group that, you know, the cleanup efforts happened almost immediately. And so it's actually really difficult to even see the effects. However, everybody is also very aware that, you know, 100 miles from here, salons have literally been washed away.
Mm.
And so it's devastating. So there's this interesting survivor's guilt that keeps coming up from the people in the Tampa Bay area. They're saying, you know, I'm so lucky that it changed course, because this was ground zero. This was, you know, the bullseye of the storm. and it took a right turn at the last minute. And so they're conflicted between feeling really grateful for missing it, but also really feeling for the people down in Fort Myers and surrounding area that are seriously reeling from the storm. And just within our group, I can tell you, I talked with the James Griffith group. Two of their salons are back in good shape, but their Boca location is still going to be a few weeks out from reopening.
They're going to do a special segment on Monday. They've got some extraordinary leadership that has stepped up, and it's been added to the segment. I think it's going to be a very special segment on Monday morning. So excited about that. So you are from Green Circle, and I'm going to let you, I think that many people that are with us today know who Green Circle is, but in case they don't or need to be reminded, why don't you give us just a brief description of Green Circle, and then why don't you describe what your role is there?
Sure. So Green Circle is really the industry's sustainability strategy. Over 13 years now, we've really crafted a strong program that delivers against a lot of the operational and financial elements of going green, from 95% waste recovery to making it actually financially lucrative for those businesses that are getting involved. And it's not lost on me that the conversation we just had was really the whole impetus for the launch of this movement. Certainly, hurricanes and forest fires and floods have been happening as long as anybody can remember, but the increasing acceleration and increasing severity of these storms is really a result of human-made climate change. And by that, I mean, as the temperature warms up, it's warming up, our air, it's warming up our water. And that's what's creating these Cat 4 and Cat 5 storms. This is really what we're kind of in a battle against. And so, where that really intersects with Pro Beauty is that every industry needs to find its own solution to draw down its carbon emissions and its greenhouse gas emissions. And so what Green Circle does is we provide a really simple turnkey solution for salons to be able to do that. And not just salons, but we work at the manufacturer, the distributor level. Obviously, where the 2 to 10 group is involved and where I'm involved is I work with all of the multi-location groups to ensure that they have a strong and operationable solution for this for the sustainability initiative. And so it's supporting them with their waste reduction, making it at minimum cost neutral, but ideally revenue positive for the business, and then ultimately giving them a great story that they can tell to support recruitment, retention, and ultimately sharing that goodwill story with the community to actually draw in new green-minded consumers.
We have 2 conferences a year right now, the Phil, and then we really more manage the 2 to 10 conference. The Phil is really the one that is really total Qnity. You guys have really been what I would consider to be the prototype sponsors and partners. And I want to give you a shout out on that because you haven't used it as a forum to over commercialize your product. You provided great content, and you're really in the spirit of great partners as we host a conference. And your community and our community, there's some overlap, but very much appreciate you and how you handle things. Now, you're doing something special this year at 2 to 10. And I heard about this the other day. I was like, wow, that's the greatest. It's awesome. And it has to do with the Phil. So give us a little bit of a tease on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually doing a couple of special things, but I think what you're referring to is our giveaway. So we think it's super important that people experience not only 2 to 10, but also the Phil. There is a lot of magic in there, and certainly we were really excited to have been given the opportunity to attend back in the spring. So we want to gift that opportunity forward. Green Circle will be giving away 5 tickets to the Phil throughout the programming at 2 to 10. So the first one is actually going to be given away in our session. We've got a roundtable session, which will actually be made up of a number of panelists. I can share more about that in a minute, but we're going to be giving away 1 ticket there. and then we'll actually be giving away a few other tickets towards the end of the event, so that Green Circle members and incumbent Green Circle members, those who actually sign up at the event, will have an opportunity to really experience all of the additional education that comes from the Phil programming.
So tell us about the what the segment you're involved in, what you're going to cover.
Yeah, sure. So I sort of teased it out earlier when I was talking about, green business and the idea of a green business strategy. The sort of working theme for this panel session is good for business, good for the planet. And so it's going to be 3 Green Circle members as well as Green Circle Salons. That's Bob Steele Group, that's Nuovo Salons, and Paris Parker, and really sharing sort of what the different elements of sustainability entail. And it's a way to sort of examine the 5 functions that all of our businesses are trying to navigate, and understanding how a sustainability initiative can really support those 5 functions, and ultimately how a Green Circle sort of connects the dot between all of those disparate 5 functions into one comprehensive turnkey strategy.
One of the things that I also very much admire about Green Circle is that you, probably more than any other organization we work with, I can't be absolute here, but you really feel a sense of the mission of what you do. I mean, all of your presentations, I mean, you said you're doing a presentation on the sustainability mission. You're not doing a presentation on Green Circle. You're very much tied to your mission. I like that about you. I think that Shane, the founder and the CEO, really lives and breathes that, and it's something else that I genuinely admire about you and your company. One last thing here before we get to Art here, which I'm super excited to bring into the conversation in a moment here, is you are going global. That has gotta, and I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that, but you're going to Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Is that right? And
That's right, the Benelux. Yeah,
that's your first foray out of North America.
that is. It is indeed. And so we launched in 2009 in Toronto. We launched in 2014 in Chicago. And really through those 2 avenues, we've been able to expand across the country on both sides of the border. And now we're jumping across the pond. And so just really quickly, I'll tell the story. We were at Coiffure EU, sharing the Green Circle sustainability mission. There were a couple of audience members who were really taken by this, and they just happened to be in that Benelux region. And they were much like me back in 2010, they were so taken by the story, the opportunity, that they said, what can we do to support this, to really help this flourish in Europe? And so fast forward a couple of years, here we are, and we're just sort of at the precipice of launching in across the European theater.
Well, I love it. Let's everybody give Will a virtual round of applause. Give him a little shout out in the chat, send a little love. Also, JP, or a member of our team, will be sending this to you. Put this in your collection of $1 million light bulbs. Will, we'll see. I can't wait to see you this weekend. It's been a while to see you face to face, so it'll be fun. So.
Absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you, Aaron, and the whole Qnity team, as well as all of the 2 to 10 members. So thanks so much for having me, and I'll see you next weekend.
All right. Thanks again, Will.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's bring it into the conversation.
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
It's good to see you.
It is good to be seen.
And
I hope you're doing well.
Doing very, very well. I hope you're doing well. I know that you've been biking and that you had a little bit of a situation there, but you're in good health.
Doing very well. I actually saw my surgeon yesterday, and he's very pleased with my progress. So I'll have a cane with me, but that'll be the only indication that I had anything amiss.
All right. Well, it's good you're getting back to full strength, and I can't wait to meet and see you in person. And thanks for joining us today. I know your time's precious, and I've been dying to get you as a guest on the roundtable. We thought, what a great time. Let me read a little bit about your background, okay? And you're a PhD You are a professor of psychology and marketing at University of Texas, Austin. And you published over 150 scholarly works on topics such as higher level thinking. I love that, including the effects of motivation on learning and performance, analytical reasoning, categorization, decision-making, and creativity. Decision-making, creativity, analytical, this is good stuff. You serve as the director of the program at the Human Dimensions Organization at University of Texas. 9 years, you were executive editor of Journal of Cognitive Science. You currently serve as a member of the editorial board of Cognitive Psychology, and you're also co-host of the radio show and podcast, Two Guys on Your Head. And that's a great name, by the way. So, and how many books have you written then?
So I've got 4 books that are kind of aimed at broader audiences, and then I have a couple of books that are aimed at 30 of my closest colleagues.
I love that. So you said your aim is to teach leaders about how people, groups, and cultures influence the workplace. So what a great area of focus and what a great mind to bring into this conversation. Thank you. And now we're going to see you and you're going to be main stage on Monday. Can you give us a little bit of a peek about what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that and I'm really excited about this. I'm really looking forward to this. I was sitting there with bated breath watching a hurricane, and so glad that it didn't devastate the area where the conference is being held. Although it's so tough for so many people who were affected by it. But my focus is going to be to really think a little bit about the kinds of relationships that we create in workplaces, and in particular to think a little bit about how, as we emerge from the pandemic, we can nurture those relationships. The COVID was tough for many industries, but the salon industry was particularly hard hit because you got to get up close and personal with people. You can't give people a good haircut on Zoom, and so it put a lot of people. I mean, there were a lot of difficult business decisions that needed to be made, and really, how do you nurture that sense of a real community within the people that you're working with? How do you do that as we move forward? And how do you think about those people who've chosen to make different decisions about their career as they move forward? The communities that we belong to aren't just the people who are part of our workplace. They're, you think, I'm in Austin, Texas. There's a lot of people who are in the salon industry here. Not all of them are working for the same salon or same group, right? And so how do you maintain a positive sense of community across that entire group of people? There's a wonderful concept that I'll talk a little bit about called the Boomerang Employee. Where people will go off and explore something new and then realize that, I had it better where I was. You have to keep open that prospect that somebody's going to come back to you in one form or another in the future. And it's so easy to get frustrated with people when they choose to leave or they choose to go in a direction that's different from the one that you wanted them to go in. But really maintaining that great community is that way of opening the door for all the kinds of things that might happen in the future that you can't predict. And so those are some of the themes that I'm going to touch on.
I'm having a bit of my own little internal light bulb moment in listening to you here, and you're hitting on a very important topic, and that is people leaving. In many cases, they tear your heart out. I mean, these are people that slept on your couch. The stories I hear, of extreme measures to take care of an individual, and then they send you a text and say, "I'm not coming to work on Monday. See you later." After 10 years, that tears your heart out. And the boomerang effect, and here was my light bulb moment. It's difficult to consider a person that leaves on negative terms an alumni, but I never really hear salons talk about that. I originally came from public accounting, and there's a PwC alumni group. Not that I'm really active involved in it, but alumni, it's just a little light bulb moment. I mean, do we see departed staff as alumni and still keep them in our community? It's pretty tough if they're violating a non-compete or something like that, but speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that one way to think about this is, what are our options? I think part of it is a lot of times when somebody does something that frustrates us, they do step out, they do, poach a few clients that, in violation of the letter of the contract that's been signed. There's a desire to want to clamp down on that, to punish that person, partly to make sure that they obey the letter of the law of the contract, and partly, there's a sense of, can I get some get out my vindictiveness a little bit. And I think part of the question we got to ask is, what's the benefit of that going to be for us in the long run? It'll feel good in the short term to turn the screws a little bit, maybe, but is it really going to help us to have a better relationship with our community? We don't, anything you do that in a business where word of mouth is so important, anything you do that might get anybody for some reason to say something bad about us is not going to help us in the long run to have that sense of community. And I think that, when the people who used to work for us still say nice things about us in the long run, it helps, right? It provides that just a little bit more of that halo around us. And I think we need to look with pride on the people who go out and leave our businesses and succeed elsewhere. Yeah, it hurts a little bit, but if you think about it, salons are not a zero-sum game. There's a lot of people who are getting their hair styled, cut, colored at cut rate places. They're not necessarily really going to get the kind of professional cut that is going to really benefit them in the long run. The more people who can be brought into that as a market, the more that it benefits the business. And I think that if people see that business as open, as welcoming, as a place of refuge, it actually benefits the entire industry. And so, by thinking of the people who used to work for you as your alumni, it changes your relationship. And one way to think about this is, think about contracts that you've signed in your life before. Those contracts create obligations, but on the day that the letter of the contract really matters, that relationship has already been destroyed. At the point where people are going back to the contract to figure out exactly what did you promise? Because most of the time with the people that we work with, we try to go above and beyond and really not just give the adequate service, but the level of service that we will feel great about in the long run. And so at the point where you feel like, what, I've got to make sure that somebody sticks with the letter of that contract, what you've done is to say, I have nothing I can do in this relationship. And my feeling is, don't go there unless you have to, right? If you can find a way to be gracious, to give somebody that opportunity to get their start in the industry on their own, even much as you'd like to continue to have them working for you. If you can look at how the things that you did for them over the course of their earlier career have benefited them in ways that actually have allowed them to go off and do something great, take a little pride in it, see it as nurturing the community, and it will come back to you in the way that people talk about you. It will come back to you in, when you're looking for new talent. Do you want the reputation of, this is a nurturing place that helped me to get my start? Or do you want this as they sucked me dry while I worked there, and then as soon as I tried to go off on my own, they tried to destroy my career? Is that really going to help you to attract the next generation?
I love this conversation. I'm curious if anybody has any input on this. I love your approach and way of thinking. And the whole boomerang effect, this is Lightbulb Moments touches on financial matters. It's not exclusive, but from a financial standpoint, a boomerang employee generally is a very high return on investment, because correct me if I'm wrong, generally, if someone comes back, that means they're doubling down on their commitment, and they're probably going to be the biggest champion. So I love Boomerang Employees. I really do. And I think that many should really look at their recruitment strategy to, with integrity, approach people that could indeed be come back.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those people who do choose to come back, those Boomerang employees, they're a benefit in all kinds of ways. For one thing, you don't really have to train them up, right? Because they actually understand your ethos. In fact, they probably brought that ethos to wherever they went after they left. And then on top of that, they've come back because this is actually a better option for them. And that's going to be reflected not just in their commitment in the workplace. It's going to be reflected in the way that they talk to the community members, and it's going to be reflected in the way that they talk to the current stable of clients that they have as they return to you. There is no downside to having people come back to you, and it is creating an environment in which that is an attractive option for somebody is, it creates a tremendous amount of goodwill in the community, and all of us are members of communities, and we know the other members of our community, and we know which ones we value and which ones concern us a little bit. And I think that being a member of a community that is looked up to is worth its weight in gold, and really does have a tremendous amount of return on that investment. And let's face it, right? Being kind to the people who've worked with you costs you almost nothing. Yeah, there might be a client or two you lose, but that's, in the grand scheme of things, not a huge payment. So really what it costs you is a little bit in the psychology of shifting your mindset to think of those people as community members and not people who were part of us and now they're part of them.
One of the things that I think you'll be talking about is you've got a lot of words here that really are quite meaty in terms of areas of focus, and you cover leadership, cognitive psychology. I want to talk about behavior change for a moment, okay? And we're taking a hard look at behavior change as it relates to whether we're teaching students or professionals financial literacy or financial wellness. And ultimately, there needs to be a behavior change, And so you're an expert in behavior change. I always love talking to experts in behavior change, and just interested in any insight you have about that topic.
Yeah, it's funny. I think when we try to affect other people's behavior, we spend a lot of time trying to craft the right message for them. Because if I could only tell you exactly the right thing, you would suddenly be more financially savvy. You would make better decisions, and information matters. But really, one of the things we have to do is to really help people change their financial environment in order to be more effective in the way that they use money, save money. I think that we have created a world in which there's very little friction. There are very few transaction costs in trying to make purchases. We have one-touch purchasing on lots of apps. We have credit cards linked to bank accounts, linked to all the places that we shop. It's very easy to do things on impulse. And so when you want to be a more financially savvy person, particularly early in your career where budgeting matters a lot. My dad's also an accountant. He always said that his fervent wish for all of his clients was that they had to pay $1 million in taxes each year, because that would mean that they weren't really having to pay much attention to money on a day-to-day basis anymore. And, would that we all could get to the point where the first thing we're thinking about is, can I afford to make this purchase? But that's really not the situation that most Americans are in. And so if you're going to be, savvy in your financial habits, you have to construct an environment that gives you an opportunity to think about the way that you're using your money. So, yes, it's important to have, it's great to have your paycheck direct deposited to your account, but can you move a little bit of that money automatically over to a savings account so that it's not obviously available in your checking account when you're looking to spend that money? Can you minimize the number of credit cards that you're using so that you're not spreading purchases across lots of places? Can you shut off one-touch buying so that you actually have to, not only put something in a shopping cart, but then actually go through a process of paying for it? Even don't allow yourself to have a vendor hold on to your credit card information so that you've actually got to type it in before you make the purchase, because each one of those phases gives you one more opportunity to ask yourself, do I really want to do this? Is this really a good idea for me? Those changes to your environment are extraordinarily powerful because they intervene on these habits that often those habits are driven by desire in the moment, right? I want this now, not I need it, I want it. And if I can break that cycle, if I can step into that and not spend that extra bit of money, then I'm putting myself on that road to financial health that is so critical to avoid credit card debt, to avoid just, the accumulation of unnecessary things. I mean, when you live in a house for more than 5 years, or any apartment when you live anywhere for more than 5 years, it's amazing how much stuff accumulates that in the end you didn't really need. So the more of that you can avoid buying in the first place, the better off you're going to be in the long run.
Talk to me about what cognitive psychology means. Now, I took psychology and I think I've got a definition of that, but I'll leave it to the pro.
Yeah, so if you think about the variety of ways that we think about psychology, often when you introduce yourself to somebody as a psychologist, the first thing that they think you're doing is looking for something wrong with them. And my clinical colleagues are focused on how do people manage the things that go wrong in their lives, the depression, the anxiety, the day-to-day frustrations. Cognitive psychology is really a focus on how does all that thinking apparatus work? How do we make decisions, which we have to do on a regular basis? How do our habits work? How do we reason through something? How can we be creative? There's a lot of us pride ourselves on finding creative solutions to problems, but a lot of times we feel like we have to wait for the muse to strike because we're not really sure how that creative inspiration strikes. But actually, there's a lot of psychology research on the basis of creativity, and you can actually do things that make yourself more likely to have a creative idea if you pay attention to the way that the research goes.
Well, and then leadership is another topic that you list, and interested in maybe some of your points of view on leadership and as it relates to the salon industry or not, it relates to the times we're in, just your take on leadership and where your lens is at these days.
Yeah, for me, when I think about leadership, it's very hard to be a good leader. I think one of the things that we recognize is that lots of people get put in leadership roles because they were good at something else. So, you were really good at your job, you got along with your clients, and now suddenly you become a leader, which means that you're doing a little bit less of the thing you were really good at. And suddenly you find yourself having to be an effective leader and manager of people. And there are just so many natural things that we want to do that don't serve us well. And to give you just two examples, one of them is many of us, particularly when you work in any kind of service industry, are agreeable people, meaning you generally like to get along with others. It's part of what drew people to you in the first place. And that's an incredible skill when you are on the front line of service. But when you're in a leadership role, you can't be too agreeable. You want to be empathetic. You want to understand where the people who are working with you come from, what they're going through. But you've also got to be willing to give them constructive criticism when that is warranted, to let people know not only what's gone right, but what's gone wrong. And the more agreeable you are, the harder it is to do that. The more time that you spend talking around the criticism rather than really cutting to the heart of it. And so really learning to be a more effective communicator about both what goes right and what goes wrong is really critical. And then I think a second thing is to understand, and this gets back to what we were talking about when we were thinking about Boomerang employees, understand the implications of what you do for the relationships that you create. So I, one of the other concepts I'll chat about on Monday is the types of relationships that we're a part of. And this notion of community or being a neighborhood is really important for a lot of success in business. But a lot of times when we don't communicate effectively, when we don't acknowledge the positive things that people have done, when we don't demonstrate how we have the long-term interests of the people working for us at heart, we actually drive them away from feeling like they're part of that neighborhood. We turn these people into strangers who want to know what you can do for them right now, rather than what we can do over the long term. And so understanding that the implications of what it means to be a leader and how you as a leader can create community, create neighborhoods is one of the most important things you can do. And I'll say one thing about this too, which is, there's so much focus in business on the money and on the economics of business. And that economic foundation of business often drives us to be focused on the bottom line right now. And one of the things that's very hard to put in that bottom line is the value of relationships, whether those are the relationships with the people that I work with or the relationships that I have with my clients. I'm not just providing them a service for a fee. I am bringing them into a neighborhood in which we want them to feel like we're going above and beyond for them all the time, and that we are finding ways to make their life better. The more that we do that, the more that we are creating something that gets people coming back. It's the thing that made sure that as the pandemic began to wane, that people came back to us and not just came back somewhere, right? It was that rejoining of a community. Leaders set the tone for that. A leader by their actions determines, am I building a community? Or am I just creating a set of transactions?
Yeah, you can't put relational capital on the balance sheet, but it could be one of the most significant assets that an organization has is relational capital.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great conversation. I've had limited time with you. I look forward to having more time with you. A couple just not off the wall, just questions. Do you have a favorite quote? I know I've got 2 or 3 favorite quotes. Do you have a favorite quote or two that might sort of embody art?
One of the ones I've been using lately, just in the context of leadership, is a quote that's attributed to Henry Ford. It's actually not clear that this was a conversation with him, but at one point, people asked him, well, what if you invest a lot of money in training your employees and they leave? And he said, well, what if I don't and they stay? And I love that, right? And it's important because what it recognizes is, we do have a duty to make sure that the people who we work with are really the best that they could possibly be. And, some of them will leave, but that's not a good reason not to be having their back. And I think that's one that's been important to me. And, I think the other thing is, so the psychologist Viktor Frankl talked about this idea that in between, as he said it, in between stimulus and response is a space, and that space is our opportunity to determine what our reaction to things are going to be, and we as humans just have a tremendous capacity to determine how we want to react to situations, and not just to have that knee-jerk reaction. And I think taking that space and thinking about what is going to project the best version of myself to everybody else is something I find extraordinarily important.
Art, you are very generous with your time. If we could all give Art a virtual round of applause. If you have any comments or shout outs for Art, do it in the chat. Art, you are welcome member of our Brain Trust, which means you get $1 million light bulb. So that will be coming. And we will be seeing you sometime on Sunday, it looks like. I hope you have safe travels down there.
Thanks. Looking forward to it. Yeah, I'll be in on Sunday and looking forward to seeing people Sunday and Monday.
All right. Thanks for being such a great guest and for your insights. Very powerful. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, let's see what else. I think we're moving into a wrap stage here. We've got these great guests. And I do want to give a shout out again to Lightheart Sanders. As I mentioned earlier, they've really helped with this compensation study. And we have several members of their team with us today. And then also thanks to all of you for showing up for today. I mean, take your precious time to join us for these dialogues is really important to me, our guests, and our community. So the whole idea behind the roundtable is all about community. So we will call it a wrap, guys. I see we're about right at our 47 minutes after the hour. Thanks for joining us. We'll see some of you this weekend. If someone could put in the chat, are we on next week? I'm not sure if we're on next week or not. So I probably need to get a quick response on that one. We are off next week. Okay, we are off next week and we are back on 2 weeks from today. We'll see you then, if not sooner. Thanks again for joining us today. And if you're listening on YouTube, thanks for getting all the way through this session. All the best, everybody. Thanks again. Bye.